that time. We're going to get started in here. It's the first Sunday of the year. We're going to try to get started on time. We're going to be resolved to start on time. We're starting a new quarter, a new year, a new Sunday. We're going to be together for the next quarter here, and we're going to be talking and taking a dive into a lesson that I've titled, I Am Resolved. It's the beginning of a year. It's the time of year when a lot of people make resolutions. Anybody here made a resolution? Are we resolution people? I don't know. Some people are, some people are. I personally, not really high on resolutions. We'll talk about that in a minute, maybe. But has anybody let me ask you this question, and just by show of hands, if you're brave enough, has anybody made a resolution that they've actually kept for an entire year? We have.
I went all last year.
You went to water aerobics all year last year.
For my health, and I'm going to continue.
And it made all the difference.
And it's made a difference.
Great. That's perfect. So resolutions can work. Anybody else made a resolution that they did not keep? Resolutions are fickle things, aren't they? Resolution is something that, quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of. New Year's resolutions in particular, because life gets busy. Things happen. Things get in the way, and both good things and bad things happen, but it always seems like something pops up, that there's always an excuse to back out of a resolution. We talk a lot about resolutions, especially this time of year, but we don't talk very often about being resolved, and there is a very distinct difference between those two things. Who wants to take a stab at the difference between a resolution and being resolved? No one. Matt does. Yeah.
I think a resolution is maybe having a goal or a plan to do something different, but being resolved is a mindset of dedication.
Okay. You're right on it. A resolution is defined first and foremost as a noun. It's a thing. It's a person, place, or a thing, right? A noun. We all know what a noun is. A resolution is a noun. It's a firm decision to do or not to do something. There it is. Now we know. But being resolved is used both as an adjective to mean firmly determined to do something, or the past tense of having resolve, which is a verb, which means being decidedly and firmly on a course of action. So whereas a resolution is a thing, and for those of you that are rusty on your elementary school grammar, I'll help you a little bit because it's not my strong suit either, and it's been a long time since I've been in elementary school. A noun is a person, place, or thing, but an adjective is a word that modifies a noun, right? It further goes to define a noun, and then a verb describes an action, a state of being or an occurrence. So essentially, an adjective, the word resolve shows the importance of being placed on the noun. And as a verb, it's an action describing actively doing something, just like Matt said. We are actively seeking out and doing something. If a resolution is a thing, what does that mean? It's easy to break. It's easy to forget. You can misplace a thing. You can forget about a thing. You can cast a thing aside. But what I'm hoping to do with this class, and the challenge that I'm hoping to bring over this next quarter, is for us, for me, for you, for us as a church body, to stop looking at our relationship and our walk with Jesus Christ as a thing. It is not a thing. It is not something that can be cast aside or forgotten about. And instead, over the length of this quarter, my hope is that we are going to be resolved to day by day and moment by moment be determined to actively do things in our lives that will result in us drawing closer to God's plan for all of us. That's an important distinction to be made, isn't it? I mean, I know this is the first Sunday of the week. I know we just all had our snacks. Maybe the coffee hasn't kicked in. But are you following along with me? This is a very, very good distinction that we need to make here. As Christians, when we think about our relationship to God, we love the idea of God calling us. We love the idea of God drawing nearer to us. But all too often, we're quick to forget that this requires to us taking the effort to make that happen. We can have a resolution to draw ourselves closer to God, but if we are not resolved in doing something about it, what are we doing? Where is the action taking place, or where is it not taking place? There's a big difference between having a resolution and having the resolve and the action to go after it. All too often, we're quick to forget that the effort is required from us to take action, to move and change in order to make that happen. Tim said this morning, where is God working and how can you join him? I don't know, I don't want to get ahead of Tim, but I think the answer to that is everywhere. And what can we do to join him is to act, to take action, to be resolved to do something, to change something in our lives. Because without change, we're staying in the same place. We're in neutral. And that is not what God calls us to do, and that's not what God calls us to be. He expects more from us. He demands more from us, and he gave us the example and the pure image of what being resolved looks like when he gave us his son. So at this point, you might be right there with me, or you might be thinking, well, sounds like just a lot of wordplay and a lot of kind of splitting hairs. But I think this past week, I was presented with the perfect analogy for what I'm talking about this morning. And so, in fact, my son Brody's sitting here with us this morning. He didn't know that I was going to point him out. Good morning, Brody. Brody is at the age now where he's in college, and instead of toys for Christmas, he's graduated to bigger and better things. He's taken over and remaking his room, and he actually asked for furniture this year. And so we obliged him with that. We live in a fantastic world where we can buy these bookshelves, bedside tables online. They come in these perfect little compact, concise boxes with a picture of exactly what it's supposed to look like on the front. And inside, there is an instruction manual, and there is everything you need, down to the planks and the boards and the screws and the bolts and the nuts and even the Allen wrench to put it all together. It's all there. It's all there, and then when you read, you do a little delving and looking into it, and you find what I was always convinced for a long period of time in my life were the three of the worst words that you could put together in the human language, which is that fine print of some assembly required. It never quite works out that way. As I watched Brody try to put these items together, I had flashbacks, and we talked about this, of living in my first apartment when I was 21 years old, and being so excited to be out in the world on my own, having all that freedom, but realizing I had an apartment that had to be furnished. And that when you're a poor college student, you get it from IKEA, you get it from another place. You have to go through the process of building and putting together and assembling these things, right? The box with the lovely picture, the materials, the screws, the nuts, the bolts, the Allen wrenches, the instruction manual, which, I put last for a reason because we don't really think it's necessary until we find out we've screwed up. That's like a resolution. It's a thing. It's an idea. It is a concept. But when you get that Allen wrench out and you begin to put those items together, and you begin to tear through the pages of those instructions, that's when resolve kicks in. The resolve to not just destroy the whole thing when you realize you put the legs on the wrong way and you had to redo it. The resolve to go through the process of getting the blisters from the Allen wrenches on your fingers, from being so frustrated you want to tear what's left of your hair out. Back when I was first moving in, putting furniture, I had hair. Maybe that's why I don't now. But the fact of the matter is, it takes resolve to make it happen. There's a beautiful picture on the box. You've got everything, and you are supplied with everything to make you successful, with the instruction manual, with all of it. It is all there. It is all packaged and perfectly put together. But it's not that simple. It takes action. It takes resolution to make it happen, and then it really takes resolution to redo it when you find out that slot A is not fitting into tab B because you used part HJ instead of part ZQ. It can be the most frustrating of things, but the fact of the matter is, if you're not resolved to make it happen, then it's just a concept. It's just a picture on a box. And it's not something that you can stack your books on. It's not something that you can utilize. Resolutions are great. But if your fingers aren't aching from the Allen wrench, if your fists haven't clenched the instruction manual at some point in sheer and utter frustration, and if your materials are all still in the box, then you aren't resolved or determined to act on it, to make it what it has the potential of being. Tim talked about submitting to God this morning, but make no mistake, that does not happen on its own. It requires resolution to devotion. It requires it. And I think that that's at the heart of my problem. For those of you who kind of matriculated in, we talked this morning about resolutions. I'm not high on resolutions. They're too easy to cast aside. I'm trying to adapt my life and my mindset to be high on the idea of being resolved, because it requires an action. And as Christians, as people who are aspiring to follow God, it requires action. Because the fact of the matter is, we can sit here with this Bible and with our knowledge and have the perfect instruction manual and have all of the tools and all of the things that we need to build a perfect example, a perfect life to follow Christ. We've got the example, but if we're not acting on it, it's just a concept. It's just an item in a box. We gave Brody wrapped packages and said, hey, this is a bookcase. That was a lie. It was an idea of a bookcase. You made it happen. We have been given the perfect instruction manual to our lives. We've been given the perfect example and all the tools to make it successful. But if we're not acting on it, what are we doing? We are a people that have to be resolved to change things. That's what it means. To be resolved means to be determined to change something. So then the question becomes, what do we change? And that's what we're going to look at over this next quarter. We're going to take week by week some examples of things that God calls us in our lives to change. And it's going to be a challenge. So I hope that you are resolved to be up for a challenge, because I plan on challenging myself. And I hope that if you're going to come and sit in this auditorium and be part of this body with us, that you too will be resolved to change something, because we've got to change. Let's give up the idea of a resolution and declare a personal revolution to be resolved each and every day to firmly make the determination to change something in our life for God. There's no shortage of things in our lives that we have to change. In fact, just trying to put together a lesson plan with some weeks, I find myself trying to make classes broader because there's a lot that we're called to do differently. There is a lot about our human nature and about who we are and what we are. And don't get me wrong, God loves us, but God definitely wants us to change. God not just wants us to change, requires us to change. To be people with a heart that love the change that He calls from us, the change that He requires from us. And that doesn't happen by having a resolution to accept that. That comes from getting down and dirty and changing and identifying those things and making a day-to-day decision that I've had enough. We've got to make something change. That's what I'm hoping for this class. And let me just go ahead and say this first. One of my favorite authors once wrote, "You best teach what you most need to learn." Well, if that's the case, then this is the class that I can best teach. And I say that as humbly as I can say, because I need to change my mindset. I need to be more resolved in my actions, in my relationship with God. And I am publicly here with you saying, I'm resolved to do that. I hope that you'll make that same journey with me. It's in that spirit that I plan on telling you this class is going to be a challenge. So not to firmly decide what we need to do, but to be firmly decided to act. Again, this is the difference between a resolution and being resolved. We're not going to talk about what to do, but we're going to decide to start doing it. And this is really just an introduction to this, and we're going to dive much farther into it, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from each week when we sit down and talk about this. And I want you to start enveloping the mindset of the fact that we can talk about everything until the cows come home. But if we don't start actively working to change, then it's empty. Then we're accomplishing nothing. I think, it was Ecclesiastes that says a sounding gong, it's pointless. And God deserves better than that. Too often, and this is going to sound critical, but I'm saying it to myself just as much as anybody else that needs to hear it, we fall into the role of holding down a pew. We're really good at that. And we can listen to a class or to a sermon that Tim shares, and we can leave here saying, this is what I took out of this. But we need to change our mindset to say, I hope that God was really happy with what took place there. And I hope that God is really happy with my mindset leaving this morning, and I hope that I am striving with my daily choices and my daily opportunities to please God. That I'm going to change my nature and conform to God's nature. We just finished looking at Romans. Daryl talked about in Romans where Paul says that we are not to conform, but to be transformed. Well, we read that. Anybody feel transformed since a couple weeks ago? I hope the answer is yes, but the fact of the matter is, I think we all realize there's a lot of transformation that needs to take place. Let's do it. Let's stop talking. Let's put things into action and let's challenge ourselves. It's going to be a challenge. If you're going to be with me, I hope that you'll be resolved to actively work alongside of me to grow each week and each day as we go through this process. If you're feeling stalled out in your spiritual life, if you feel like you're not growing, I think this is going to be a class for you. If you know someone who's lost their connection with God and can't seem to figure out how to get back on track, this is a class for you and for them. If you're watching from home and you're able to be here with us, I hope that you'll be resolved to come back and join this group and to join us here in this body and to grow together. And if you're watching from home and you're not able to be with us, God bless you. We love you, and we hope that if there's anything we can do for you, put it down in the comments. But I hope that from where you are, you'll follow along and you'll commit to being resolved to change something in your life to make yourself a better disciple of Christ. Maybe you feel like you've got all the instructions and all the materials, but you don't know how to make your life look like the example on the front of the box. Christ gave us that example, but it's just a concept if we're not working at it. If that's the case, this class is for you. Maybe you're here this morning and you feel like you don't even know where to start. This class is for you. If you've made a resolution to invite other people to church, but you haven't shown the resolve to go through with that yet, this class is for you and for the visitor that you'll invite. And I encourage you, invite them. Bring them here. This is a class that will look at the Bible and will look at the things in our lives that we can do to not just be better Christians, but to be better people. Invite them. Let's take this plunge together. Over the next weeks and months, we are going to resolve ourselves to learn a lot of things. Some of the things we're going to be looking at, we're going to resolve ourselves to find joy in our lives. Even through the bad times, and especially through the bad times. It's a very biblical principle. To find joy, it's a very hard thing sometimes. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to be resolved to committing ourselves to finding joy. Not only when it's hard, but especially when it's hard. And to appreciating that when it's easy. We're going to be resolved to never stop learning and refining our understanding of God's word, because the fact of the matter is, God deserves it. He gave us his word and his message for a reason. He intends us to learn it, to know it, to commit it to our hearts and our memories, to resolve ourselves to change because of it. And we're going to take a look at that as well. We're going to be resolved to be prayerful because we worship a God who deserves to hear from us. We worship a God who demands to hear from us, and we worship a God who amazingly listens to us. Think about that concept for a minute. We all know that conceptually, but we worship a God who listens to us and who we've all seen act in one way or another. We're going to be resolved to be prayerful. We're going to resolve in the course of this class to be people of action because we serve a God who deserves us to act in the small ways and in the mighty ways, and then maybe in the realization that sometimes the small ways are the most mighty ways that we can. We've got to change, and changing takes action. So we're going to look at that in this class. We're going to resolve to share our faith. We're going to resolve to make ourselves uncomfortable in this world because God requires it, because God has told us, and because there are too many churches across the nation right now who are telling you you can be comfortable and God will bless you and God will prosper you and do all of these things just because of your faith. And while aspects of that can be true, the fact of the matter is we are required to move. Where is God and how do we find our way to him? Well, we don't do it by staying still. We are going to have to make ourselves uncomfortable in this world because this world is not meant for us. This is a testing ground, if you will. This is a holdover to where our true home is and where we were designed and determined to be. We're going to talk about being uncomfortable in this world, and it's going to be a challenge. I hope we're up for the challenge. We're going to talk in this class to learn to love as Christ loved. Now, there's a concept, and that's a difficult one. And I will tell you right now what you already know. You cannot love as Christ loved without changing aspects of your life, without being resolved day by day to allow God to work on your heart, to change the way that you interact with everyone and everything. We're going to talk in this class about sacrificing our own identity in order to be one with our Father and our God and our Creator. And that's going to be a challenge too. And all of these things that I've talked about are all concepts that we understand, but they're all pictures on the box until we sit down and start putting the pieces together. So let's decide, let's be resolved to put the pieces together. And let's do it as God intended, as a body, as brothers and sisters, as a family brought together by the one who unites us, Jesus, God, as it was designed to be. We've been part of this body for a long time, and we've probably dabbled in all of these things to some degree. Let's stop dabbling, let's stop tinkering, and let's start talking about resolving ourselves on a day-to-day basis to really changing. Think about what that looks like. Think about how that changes every aspect of your life. It is going to be a challenge. I'm looking forward to it. Together, we're going to look at the Bible, and we're going to learn to see what God is asking and requiring of us. And we're going to look at each other to be individually resolved to change something about our lives that's holding us back to living up to the potential that God calls us to be. We want to live a life that's right in step with what God expects of us. And we say that, and we want to do that. And then someone cuts us off in traffic. And then a deadline pops up. And then life happens. And if we have a resolution to change, if we've got that noun, that thing, it's really easy to throw that by the wayside. But if we look at it as an action, an actionable source, that we have got to take the steps forward, that we have got to have the intention of doing with everything that we do, with everything that we've got, that really changes everything. And maybe part of you thinks, yeah, this is great, but maybe we could scale back on this a little bit. We worship a God that doesn't call us to scale back. In fact, he's already called us for most of you in this room, I imagine, to die to ourselves. When we gave ourselves to Christ in baptism, we said that we were going to let our nature die and we were going to give our best effort to live for Him, to be resolved. Tim called it devoted, to do what He wanted from us and to put our nature aside. Thank God for grace. We've all fallen short of that. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't change our parameters, we don't change our paradigm to see things actively, to start embracing the verb of changing and acting on it, then what are we doing? We're not growing. We're not going backwards. It seems like we're embracing kind of being lukewarm, and we know how God feels about that. We're going to change together. You know, last week when this topic for this class was released, it was in the bulletin, actually. I almost had a miniature panic attack because I was afraid I was going to have to change my plan up here a little bit. It's here in the bulletin as I am res loved. And I don't know what res loved means, but I believe it was a typo. When we talked about the idea of being resolved, a lot of people came up to me and said, "Hey, are you going to sing the song, I Am Resolved?" You don't want me to do that, so I'm not going to do that. I did a little looking back on that in this past week and looking at the lyrics, and oddly enough, if you could imagine, they're right on cue with our message this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and share them with you now. And most of you probably know at least a few of these verses. Verse 1 says, "I'm resolved no longer to linger, charmed by the world's delight. Things that are higher, things that are nobler, these have allured my sight. I'm resolved to go to the Savior, leaving my sin and strife. He is the true one. He is the just one. He has the words of life. I'm resolved to follow the Savior, faithful and true each day. Heed what he saith, do what he willeth. He is the living way." Sounds a little old Englishy, but it was written in 1896, so I think we all follow along there. In the fourth verse, he says, "I'm resolved to enter the kingdom, leaving the paths of sin. Friends may oppose me, foes may beset me, still will I enter in." And all of those kind of conceptually give us an outline, a framework of what it is that we want. We want to be closer to God. We want to follow God. We want to hasten, dare I say, to draw ourselves closer to God. And then there's the original fifth verse, which I'd never heard before. I don't know if it's in our books or not. I was going to look this morning, but I don't see any books around here anymore. This is one that was new to me. It was as it was originally published by Palmer Hartsoff in 1896, but I think it's especially fitting for us this morning. The fifth verse, as it was originally written, says, "I am resolved, and who will go with me? Come, friends, without delay. Taught by the Bible, led by the Spirit, we'll walk the heavenly way." What do you see in there? Palmer Hartsoff knew that being resolved on his own wasn't going to be enough. He needed someone to walk with him. He needed someone to hold him accountable. He needs his brothers and his sisters to be resolved too. They need to walk together. Come, friends, without delay. We'll be taught by the Bible, led by the Spirit, and we'll walk the heavenly way. And again, what sticks out to me there is that we'll walk. We can't wait for God to come to us. He did that. He did that greater than any of us could ever imagine 2,000 years ago. He blazed the path, and ever since then, and ever since the fall of man, we have been backing away from him. It's time for us to stop backing away. It's time for us to stop being comfortable and neutral, and it is time for us to be resolved to take a step forward, to change something in our lives, to grow ourselves closer to God. Being a Christian is not a spectator sport. And it is not a non-contact sport. It's going to be hard. You are going to feel bruised and betrayed and left because this world is not our home. And we need people to walk with us. God knew that. That's why he gave us a family. That's why he is our father and we are brothers and sisters. Can we do this together? Because I would love it if myself or one person could come out of this class and say, you know what, I was really resolved. But by themselves on an island, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We have to be determined, and we have been designed by our Creator to do this together. Can we do this together? Because conceptually, we'll all say yes. Are you ready to change something? Are you ready to be resolved? That's what the question is going to be. And that's what this quarter is going to be about. And I think at the end of this quarter, if we can answer genuinely yes to that question, this church will look different. These people and the people watching from home will be different in the best way possible. Because there's nothing negative that comes from following God's example. There are a lot of hard things. There are a lot of difficult things. There are a lot of maybe negative aspects in this world, but we're not working for this world. And we're not working for the lords of this world. This is not our home, and this is not where we're designed to be. We have to be resolved. We will hasten to him, hasten glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, we will come to thee. He's there. He's always been there. And he is, make no mistake, waiting for us to be resolved. He is, make no mistake, hoping and calling for us to change, to have the resolve to change something. Being resolved means we need to be the ones taking action to move. And if we're going to take action to move, let's move towards God. Because moving laterally and moving backward does not get us where we need to be. It doesn't get us where we want to be, and it doesn't get us where God is calling us to be. You know, James wrote in James chapter 1, verse 12, and he said, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." Do we love the Lord? We could say yes, right? You could say yes, I would hope. Do we love the Lord? We love the Lord. What are we doing to persevere under our trials to show that to him? Because I'm not here to point fingers at anyone except myself, but I know that personally, I fall way short on my persevering to prove that. And I want to be resolved to change that. I hope I'm not the only one. I believe that I'm not the only one here this morning that feels that way. Let's act on it. Let's be resolved to persevere together towards what the Lord has promised to those who love him. You know, Tim said it this morning. Living devoted requires action. There's a lot of things that have overlapped with the sermon this morning. The one thing that's holding it all together, the one thing that is making it truly congruent, is the fact that we're required to act. Not talk about it, not conceptually understand it, but to really take a step forward. Whether we do that by faith or whether we do that by action, whatever it is that motivates you to do that, the fact of the matter is, it's time. The fact of the matter is, it's past time. The fact of the matter is, when you gave your life to Christ, you said you were going to do that. I said I was going to do that, and the fact is, we've all fallen short and will. Do we have the resolve to not toss it away like a thing, but to act on it and to move and to change and to continue to step forward? It's something that I'm hoping that we'll continue to do together. And I won't ask you to raise your hand, and I won't ask you to to make some great uncomfortable public pledge, but I will ask you, if you're going to continue to come to this class, come with an open heart and an open mind to really be resolved to change things. Because we're going to talk about real applicable things in our lives that we can change on a day-to-day basis that will change for the better and make us more Christ-like if we're willing to do it. So in that vein, this week's homework is going to be to think about being resolved and to change things in your life for God on a daily basis. To be open to and seeking out the challenges that God is pushing you to, moment by moment and instant by instance. And then I want you to ask yourself, at some point this week, before we come back, before we choose to come back here in this class, what do you want or need to change in your life? And there's a lot of things. That's not probably if you're coming up with a one-word answer to that, you're being too general. Really be resolved and resolute to take an honest look at yourself and say, what do I need to change? What is one thing that is holding me back from truly embracing what Christ calls me to be? And then I want you to ask yourself, what does changing that look like? On a day-to-day basis, on a moment-by-moment basis, on a way that you interact with the people around you, what would it look like? And then what will it take you to accomplish it? That might be a tough question too. What will it take you to accomplish it? I'll tell you, whatever the answer is that you come up with, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it because it'll draw you closer to God. We all want to be closer to God. We all dream of an eternity when we can be in God's presence. Well, we've got not an eternity here, but we've got every moment to inch towards that. Are we taking advantage of those moments? This world isn't our home, but we have time here, and we can utilize that time in a way that will please God and that will make us better followers of Christ. What would that look like? What would it take? And how would that change you? Think about that. And then next week, if you're resolved and willing to make a firm determination to change some things in your life and your walk with God, we'll be back here, Lord willing. And I hope to see you there. I don't have marbles and I don't have jars, but I hope that we will grow together and do life together and here in that same manner to hold each other accountable, to have those conversations. You're going to be breaking bread with each other anyway. Let's have some conversations about what our life could be, about what God truly expects from us, and about where we fall short in that. Because it's real easy to say, hey, brother, how you doing? Doing great? Blessed? It's true. We're blessed. But we're here to walk this walk together. And if that walk's not moving forward, what are we doing? Let's be resolved to be critical, to be honest, to open up the Word and to take a look at what God is truly calling us to be and honestly assess how far off from that we are and put into practice some changes to correct it, to put us back on the right path, on the straight and narrow, dare I say. It's going to be a challenge. And I hope that you'll join me for the challenge. Yes, Matt.
Mike, I just have a comment.
Sure.
When you were talking, it kind of reminded me of Jesus' parable where he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then, in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field. And, I want to get on board, and I want to make some changes with you. And I want to do it in joy, because I think in my head, from reading what Jesus is offering, to thinking about this church as a 242 church, I see the treasure there. And, I want to go enjoy and do what needs to be done to get that field that has the treasure.
Appreciate that. I want to take that walk with you. And I want us to hold each other accountable on it. Absolutely. This is the introductory. We are going to delve into some different things each week. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm happy to open the floor up to anybody with any quotes, quibbles, qualms, questions.
So I always make the comment, and I don't know if anybody's ever heard me before, it's like, I'm just going to do it even if I know it's wrong. I'm just going to do it, and God will bless it somehow, some way. And it doesn't make sense sometimes whenever I do something to me or to the other people, but you look back and see where the blessings have come.
Sure.
You just step out in faith.
There is a lot about following God that is counterintuitive to our human nature. There's no question about that. And that's one of the reasons it's so easy to cast those things aside, but we're required to do more.
It sounds wrong when I say it's wrong there.
No,
I don't know it's right. It's like,
Yeah.
you always wonder, is this the right thing for me to do?
Sure.
That's what I meant, not like,
Yeah.
please no.
I understand, yeah. Ed?
Yes. It's funny that you mentioned the typo in the flyer, but resolved instead of resolve. I was talking to Joni about it, and I was thinking that was intentional because it coincided with Tim's sermon about, being devoted, to love like Christ did. And
We can be res loved too, for sure. I res loved all of you. Well, not in it with an ED. That's pastor. I love all of you, and hopefully we'll all continue to love each other more. But yes, yeah.
If anyone knows me, they know I don't speak very much because I'm very shy. But I have to say, in life, everything takes action. To have a good, happy marriage takes action. And I've been married 54 years, and I tell you, we need some action.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to try to get my husband in this class. So if you all can help me to get him to come to this class, I think it'd be wonderful. If I could just put that out. And to raise good children takes action. To be a good Christian takes action. And I really appreciate the song. It brought me back to 14 years old when I was baptized. Mm-hmm. So I've been a Christian for 61 years. And I feel like I need to grow. And I'm so happy to be here.
If you lose the feeling, I appreciate you saying that. If you lose the feeling that you need to grow, something's wrong. We don't retire from our journey with Christ. We keep working through it. Josh, do you have something? No, okay. I appreciate you saying that. Were you familiar with the 5th verse there?
I have them all memorized.
Do you? Okay.
I could sing them, but I won't.
I'll join you in not singing. That would be perfect. I appreciate it, and I really do. I really do feel genuine in saying, not that we don't all understand. I really do feel genuine in saying that I think if we really embrace this, if we really are committed and resolved to changing something, and we hold each other accountable, I think this church will change. I think this community will change. I think the worlds that we live in will change, and that's not because I'm smart, that's because God said they would. And God's expectation for us, really, is that they will. So I hope that you'll join me, and I hope that you'll take this and hold me accountable to keeping this a serious thing that we work together towards. With that, we're right out of time, so I appreciate you, and I hope you'll be here with us next week. Thanks.
shake your head.